So the BRICS nations have just announced mass sanctions against the US and Israel. At least according to this YouTube expert tech show who doesn't know what he's talking about. After using several search engines, the only article I could find is that BRICS countries discuss Gaza conflict, but don't agree on a joint declaration. If the BRICS nations did something to disrupt trade with the rest of the world, you would see a bunch of economic indicators go crazy. The US dollar would not be at 102 in its index right now. It would either skyrocket to well over 110 as a flight to safety, or it would crash well below 80 if people were abandoning it. The price of oil would easily be over $120 a barrel, and our treasuries, like our 10-year and our 2-year bonds, would not be at 4.1 and 4.6%. It would most likely go well within 10% or 11%. The Fed funds rate would not be at 5.33%. But what would happen if the BRICS nations attempted to sanction the United States? Let's look at our imports by country. Who are our top 3 importers? Mexico, Canada, and China. China's economy is going through a recession, which is why oil prices keep crashing, because their manufacturers aren't needing the oil. China needs our market. We are keeping them afloat. But what if the BRICS nations stop taking our exports? Well, look at that. Canada gets 18% of our exports, Mexico gets 16%, and China gets only 7.5%. Let's look at all of these other nations that import our goods. Are these BRICS nations? Won't Mexico join BRICS? Their president said in May that the US dollar is the globe's principal currency, and he backs it. And keep in mind, the United States is already taking their factories out of China and putting them in Mexico. What about sanctioning the US dollar? Saudi Arabia said last year that they're considering accepting yuan instead of dollars. A year and a half has passed, and China is buying more oil now from Russia than the Saudis. I wonder what happened. But OPEC nations are selling their liquid natural gas to the Chinese in yuan. Yeah, because there's no contract between OPEC and the US as to how they sell their natural gas. Duh. But the BRICS nations have so many more people, 3.2 billion. That's 4 times the G7 population. The total GDP for the G7 is $46 trillion, while the BRICS is $31 trillion. And that's including all the new countries that just joined. Maybe the BRICS nations would be more of a threat if China did not have to constantly deal with food scarcity. And by the end of 2023, the BRICS nations were buying up US treasuries again. At the beginning of 2023, the world had about $7.2 trillion of US debt. By the end of the year, they increased that number to $8 trillion. So the BRICS nations, along with a lot of the world, just increased their US debt holdings by $800 billion. And maybe the BRICS nations would be more of a threat if they weren't too busy strangling each other. This is the most telling chart of the relationship between China and Russia. It is the exchange between the ruble and the yuan. Right before Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, the Chinese skyrocketed their currency against the ruble, and the ruble dropped like a stone. And then China started buying a lot of Russian goods on the cheap. The ruble recovered very quickly for a short period of time and was actually above average. And now the ruble is trading much lower against the yuan, and the yuan is struggling against the dollar. India just uncovered a trafficking racket duping Indian citizens into fighting for Russia in Ukraine, and India just moved 10,000 more troops to their border with China because the Chinese keep making incursions. So I'll agree with Tech Show. This is bad for BRICS. I'm the Geo Husar, and if you want to have a good laugh as to the threat that the BRICS nations pose, please look at my playlist on them. Thanks for watching.